All right, guys. I think we're going to go ahead and get rolling here. We have any late arrivers, we can just get them caught up. Appreciate everybody joining here tonight. Thank you for making the time to jump in here live for our interview tonight with Coach Tyler Morder from Holy Family University, pitching coach, recruiting coordinator there. Very excited to have him on to provide some great insight for you guys and just be somebody to maybe ask some questions of as well. We always love to hear from the college coaches directly. So he's going to be a guy that's on the road doing his thing. And so we want to hear from him tonight and have you guys get some of that knowledge from him. Now, I'm going to record tonight's interview. So if there's anything you want to go back over, you'll be able to come back over that. And we'll send that out later on. But Coach, how you doing tonight? Thanks for jumping on here.
Yeah, I'm good and fired up. Love talking about, the recruiting process. Love helping out all guys, not, just the guys that we get. Just love and enjoy the process.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I know these guys are in for a treat here tonight. So if you guys can, follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, NCSA Baseball. You can see that on the screen there. We'll share some content too throughout the year and so forth, so you guys can see some things we're doing there as well. All right, let's go ahead and dive into some things here. Now, real quick, just a couple of housekeeping items, just so you guys know, we've got a few other workshops coming up here the rest of June, kind of getting into July. I'm forming my July workshops. I'll have them in the NCSA University soon. But tonight, if you guys are middle infielders and haven't signed up for that session yet, we're running a summer recruiting for middle infielders tonight. So jump in there tonight if you guys haven't signed up for it. A couple other coach interviews coming up on Sunday. Got some Iowa guys jumping on with me. So moving out to the Midwest a little bit. So check those out on Sunday, guys. If you have questions about emailing coaches, we've got that one on the 17th, shooting your video and so forth. So sign up for those. You get the recordings if you don't make it live. So go ahead and sign up if you can't make it live, and we'll get you those recordings. Then be on the lookout for the July workshops. We got those coming as well. All right. Real quick, I'm going to take 30 seconds and then I'm done here, and then we're heading over to Coach. But real quick, guys, in case you haven't been in these workshops and haven't really seen me before, my name's Andy Drake. I am the senior group recruiting coach here for baseball, oversee our elite members, put a lot of the content together, creation of the content and workshops. Former college coach myself, head coach at Cairn University for a year, a long time ago, recruiting coordinator at Kalamazoo College here in Michigan, played at Calvin College when I was a guy back there, but played there. So D3 background myself, been here at NCSA for over 10 years working with guys here. So hopefully be a good resource and host here tonight. But let's get into our guest. So Coach Tyler Morder is on. Appreciate him joining tonight. Again, if you're joining late, pitching coach, recruiting coordinator at Holy Family University. That's a Division II program out in PA. So, Coach, first of all, just if you don't mind, tell these guys a little bit about kind of your background, like your playing background, coaching background. How did you end up where you're at there at Holy Family? What's kind of the journey that you took to get there?
Yeah, for sure. It's been a heck of a journey for sure. I'm from Hershey, Pennsylvania, kind of middle of nowhere. Was really unique recruiting process. I committed May of my senior year, which in today's world's unheard of. Never played a day of travel baseball. Just kind of times were a little different back then, especially in Central PA. So I ended up committing to Seton Hill University out in Pittsburgh. Always say it's the best 4 years of my life. We played in 2 College World Series. I have a whole bunch of rings. Got a great education. I'm also an educator. I teach special education, so got a really good degree out there and just enjoyed every second of it. Didn't really have coaching in the game plan, from the get-go. Kind of was going to do my 4 years and go teach, but just could never get away from it. So I came back home, and there was an opportunity at Cabrini University, which is, again, another Philly area school. They had a graduate program, so that was kind of my cop out a little bit, hey, I'm still going to go to school and I'm going to stay in baseball. And it was awesome. We got to build a program there. I came in year 2. We built something really special there. It was a fun 3 years. Sadly, that university closed down this year. But it was really cool to see what, Coach Weisseipel built, and to be a part of, those first few years. After that, again, couldn't get out of it, really was investing a lot of time in it. So I went to Ursinus College, a little bit further outside of Philadelphia, about 45 minutes from the city, and kind of a different landscape. It was a high academic conference, still Division III, but just a unique experience. Got to learn, understand Exeter, who was a head coach at the Division III level for 25 years, a really big time mentor for me, and a really cool opportunity. Things shuffled out and I actually didn't coach for a spring. There was a coaching change, kind of thought it was time to, just take my talents to the classroom. And then Holy Family started the program.
Hmm.
Coach Davis got the job, and the very next day he shot me a text and said, I need a pitching coach. And it all kind of fell into place. It's 10, 15 minutes from where I teach at.
Hmm.
He kind of gave me the reins to run the pitching staff how I wanted to, which is pretty cool. And just all kind of fell into place. So we just wrapped up year one. June 1st, we're officially 1 year old as a program. And it was quite an eventful first year, but a lot of fun. I'm glad I'm still in the game.
Oh, that's awesome. Appreciate that. So, a couple thoughts that I had that I wanted to kind of have the guys dig into a little bit. So, Cabrini, yeah, I mean, it was a newer program when you joined there, and now Holy Family, kind of a newer program. So, you've been part of like not just maybe a rebuild of like an established program, but like starting from the ground up. So talk a little bit tonight to the guys about like, kind of some of the advantages of maybe looking at programs that are a little bit more fresh, kind of have that new car smell as like a new program. What's some advantages that guys may have if they're maybe considering some of those schools?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first and foremost, the ability to compete right away. I always talk to recruits and explain to them, you as a high school senior, you want to hear I play right away,
Mm-hmm.
or you're going to have an opportunity to step on the field. But when you're a junior or senior in our program, you don't want to hear that freshmen play anymore. So it's kind of that unique perspective that I try to bring to recruits.
Mm-hmm.
But I think truly, at startup programs, that opportunity is a little more prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
To put it in perspective, we were told June 1st of last summer that, hey, you need to put a product on the field in September for fall baseball. So we were kind of up against it. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of guys in the 23 class were kind of wrapped up, kicking their feet up and knew where they were headed. So we went a unique route. We went some transfers. We kind of joked around that we were the band of misfit toys, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people that just didn't have a home. But we put together a 20-win season. We're the first team out of the playoffs. We put together a really, really strong run, and that's kind of helping us in the process now. But definitely, the opportunity to play right away. And then the other thing I don't want to sound like a salesman, but um, just that opportunity to create a culture. A lot of times recruits and parents will ask, what's the culture like? And it's kind of fun at Holy Family where we get to tell them you get to create the culture.
Yep.
At the end of the day, it's Coach Davis's program, but the guys on the field are the ones laying the groundwork for it. So it's pretty cool to create the culture, kind of write the history book as we go.
Yeah, I love that. So you guys are a year and about a week and a half old as a
Yeah.
program, so definitely very fresh. So, tell us a little bit more about, Holy Family, some of the things that the guys might want to know about just the school, the program, what kind of stands out about, Holy Family. And also, we'll get into the on the field here in a little bit, but just tell me a little bit about kind of the school and kind of what might be good for the guys to know about the school.
Yeah, for sure. So we're a Division II school, pretty small, 3,600 total students.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a decent graduate and doctoral program, which in today's world, some of those extra COVID years, those graduate students really
Mm-hmm.
bolster our roster. But a small school, we're about 15 minutes from downtown Philly.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoy the area. Again, I said I'm from Central PA, middle of nowhere. It's pickup trucks and farms. So I don't think you'd catch me coaching in the city, but it's pretty cool. Can hop on a car ride with a bunch of guys and go down and catch a Phillies game, things like that. So I really like the location. The location also allows us to recruit nationally. A lot of schools have to recruit regionally and, kind of within the state or at least neighboring states. But the fact that Philadelphia Airport's 15 minutes, a guy from South Carolina, that's not really a 10-hour trip. It's a 2.5, 3-hour
Mm-hmm.
plane ride. So it's pretty cool to recruit nationally, things like that. Pretty typical school, pretty strong academically. I would say our graduate programs are really strong, especially the MBA program, just because of all the connections, being so close to the city. Um, and I'd say there's a really big emphasis in athletics. I really like our athletic director, just a guy that is very involved. He comes out and watches our games. The president threw out a first pitch. Like you can just tell there's a big time investment, not just in the baseball program, but in all the athletics here at Holy Family.
That's awesome. Now, first year, jumping right in at the D2 level. I mean, that Pennsylvania D2, you played at Seton Hill. Like, how strong that level of play is there. You guys had a pretty strong first season, all things considered, getting to that 20-win mark. Talk a little bit about kind of what you think led to that. Like you mentioned a little bit about, hey, bringing some guys in and maybe getting some older guys in. But, overall, like what are some of the sort of program philosophies, things that you think kind of helped to lead to that first start, getting off to a good start there that season?
I mean, it was a roller coaster ride. There were definitely ups and downs. We got our butts kicked a few times, and that was expected. But the big thing I instill, as one of the leaders within the program is just enjoy the journey. Um, what high school guys on this call don't really realize is, you're kind of on a clock. And you want to go to a place where you enjoy it. You look back 10, 15 years and you're like, I made the right choice. We might not win a national championship. You might just be a 20-win program, but guys that leave our program are going to look back and say, I enjoyed every second of it, every practice, every game. And that's what we tried to instill in our guys. And we just kind of got a different energy and effort out of our guys. We never went into a game doubting ourselves, which as a first-year program was kind of expected. There were 4 teams in our conference that went to a regional. It's a really competitive conference. But we just never had that. We never really felt overmatched. And we also had we were kind of blessed with a really lucky and gritty group. Some junior college guys that came in and made a difference, and high school guys that kind of jumped in, the unknown with both feet and just said, hey, we're going to go with it. I think our coaching staff did a great job. Kyle Davis, our head coach, obviously has been a head coach in the Philly area for a while at University of the Sciences. But he assembled an all-star lineup here for us with a coaching staff. Coach Brancato's awesome. The guy's on the road 24/7. Coach Sable, one of our volunteer assistants, is the definition of a grinder. He'll show up and run all over the place. Sometimes you have to reel him back in. Tell him to lay off the caffeine a little bit, but we just have the all-star lineup and we really gelled together as a coaching staff. And I think our guys responded well to the coaching staff and just kind of rode the waves, the highs and lows with us.
That's awesome. So as recruiting coordinator, obviously you've got a big hand in the recruitment, putting together the class, identifying potential student athletes. How do you anticipate kind of like, obviously the first year, it's kind of like, we got to just get some dudes in here, right? But now that you guys have a couple of years, maybe a plan out here for the next 2 or 3 years, how do you anticipate sort of your recruiting strategy going? How do you feel you guys are going to approach, like geographically and more of a leaning towards transfer guys, high school guys? What do you kind of anticipate your guys' approach to recruiting be in these next couple of years?
Yeah, we'd like to get back into a little more of the typical recruit a high school guy, develop a high school guy, and put a product on the field. I think the transfer portal, and we also have some really, really strong connections in the junior college world. So they'll always be prevalent, but I think you'll see us kind of take a more traditional approach, recruit the high school guys, develop them, put the product on the field and see what we have. As far as how we divide up our recruiting, essentially our assistant coaches, including myself, are the guys typically out on the trail, kind of, laying the groundwork, things like that. And then what Coach Davis does is he essentially mans campus. Obviously, when you come on a visit, you want to talk to the head honcho. So he's on campus for the majority of the time. And then, if we need a second opinion on a guy or the assistants are kind of torn between people, Coach Davis will go out and see kind of individual players rather than those big group events.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, as far as what we're looking for, in a recruit, that's a question that everyone kind of asks, and it's tough to answer. Obviously, there's baseline metrics. Being a Division II program, I hate to sell velocity, but velocity does matter for pitchers. Bat to ball skills, defensive metrics, like those things do matter. But at the end of the day, we're looking for those things, and once you check those boxes, the next thing that I'm looking for, which is probably a little unique, is guys that I don't mind, kicking it with, and hanging out with, genuinely good guys. Because at the end of the day, we spend a lot of time with our team. We travel on spring break for an entire week where you're with these guys 24/7, and outside of guys that can, play it, pick it, throw it, and swing it, we're looking for genuinely good guys that we don't mind hanging out with, that aren't going to cause issues, that take care of their work, and, are just awesome guys and going to be guys that continue to, give back to the program, things like that.
For sure. You mentioned some of the guys get on the road, yourself included, get out. So talk to the guys here in the room a little bit more about like how you guys get out to see recruits. Is it, I mean, obviously it's a little bit of everything, I'm sure, but, tell these guys like what's kind of the best way that they can maybe get in front of you, just maybe even general advice around that, putting together videos, tournament schedules, things like that. Like, where are you guys at? How are you sort of getting out and seeing guys and maybe identifying potential recruits?
Yes, we do a little bit of everything. We're really lucky in the Philadelphia area that the team camp scene's, pretty impressive. St. Joseph runs an amazing team camp. East Stroudsburg runs an amazing team camp. So we're kind of blessed to see, 8 teams every weekend at both those events. For guys that are kind of doing it on their own, I'd do some research into the individual showcases. I understand there's a monetary value behind them, and they're not always the cheapest thing to go to. Personally, I'm a big fan of I-95, which is they just run 2 events on the summer. I throw batting practice to 300 straight guys. Like I love those days. They're my favorite events. Best in the U.S. runs a few different showcases kind of throughout the country. And I think those events are good for a lot of recruits because there's so many schools there.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, there's guys on this call, and be great if one of you land at Holy Family, but at the end of the day, we want you to go to the best place for you. I'm a firm believer there's a place for everyone to play, and I think that's what those big events with 100+ coaches kind of provide, is they have different tiers of schools that need different ability of players. So
What
big events like that, again, it is easy to get lost in the shuffle. I'm going to be transparent. There's a lot of guys running through it. But at the end of the day, coaches understand what they're looking for. And if you're a guy kind of new in the process and you might not have a list going, I think it's a good opportunity for you to kind of showcase yourself, in front of 100 coaches and kind of see what hits.
So speaking of that, when you're out there, and I mean, you can get into some of the weeds a little bit and maybe some specific stuff, but in general, what kind of makes guys stand out? Like, let's say you're at a showcase event like that. What, whether it's position player or pitcher, it's defensively, like, what are some things that guys do that stand out to you that maybe these guys can be thinking about? All right, again, things they can work on, or things that will stand out for the coaches at those events.
Sure. So, as far as a pitcher, typically we're seeing a really small sample size. We're seeing a bullpen of 20, 25 pitches or maybe a few innings live. So I'm looking for a few things. I try my best to be there as early as possible and see kind of how we prepare. We kind of run a unique pitching staff here. So we're big into our preparation and how we're taking care of our body. Again, going back to the point that, their 4 years with us are likely their terminal end of baseball. So as much as we want to develop and continue to improve, we're still looking for guys to be able to play all 4 years, and that's what our players want as well. So I'm really looking at the preparation for the pitchers, how they handle themselves on the mound. I really read body language. You can see a guy that's maybe struggling through a bullpen, and you still kind of like pieces of the delivery, things like that. But I'm looking at how he kind of responds to that adversity. Sure, the baseline metrics, like we talked about, we probably won't take a right-handed pitcher under 83, 84 miles per hour, lefty under 80, 82, unless you have, a funky arm slot or a plus secondary pitch, things like that. But outside of that, I mean, that's really what I look for. It's tough for a high school guy and to compare his mechanics to one of my college guys. We have graduate students that are 22, 23 years old. They've been doing it a lot longer. They've worked with college pitching coaches. So I don't try to get into the mechanics as much. I more try to predict, within my philosophy, my pitching program, if they do X, Y, and Z, how are they going to develop?
Yeah.
Again, I could do the pitching part forever. As far as position players, a BP round, we're just looking for barrels, consistent barrels. It's awesome if a guy leaves the yard, things like that, hitting balls off the fence, but we're also looking for the consistency, because when you get to us, the best guys are going to play, obviously, but at the same time, the guys who are consistent and we know what we're going to get, those are the guys you can really rely on for the entire season. So we're looking for guys to bang the ball around, stay gap to gap. We're really looking for guys to be on time during batting practice. We'll kind of give you that first pitch as a grace pitch to be on time. And then the next 6 to 7 balls that you get, we're looking for you to drive balls in the gap. And defensively, we're just looking for that quick twitch action. It's kind of a cliche and a lot of people say it, but those athletes just develop better when they get into a college program. So that middle infielder that's moving and bouncing all over the place is a little easier to recruit, because we've had him before. We know how he can develop. We know how we can help him, and we know he's a great athlete. Those are some things we're looking for. We definitely are looking for guys who also, buzz around the field, have a bunch of fun. I was at a showcase last night in Staten Island until 11 o'clock, and there was one kid, and during batting practice, he didn't take a single ball off. And he was just fun to watch, enjoyable to watch, great athlete, and, he's a guy that we'll follow up with.
I love that you mentioned that, because I always thought that too when I was a college coach. Like, hey man, the results aren't always going to go perfect, but are you having fun? Do you have a smile? Are you are you energetic? I love that you mentioned that, because I think sometimes guys get a little nervous and a little tight at those events.
Sure.
Don't let yourself get tight. Hey, just stay loose and relax and do your thing, and it's going to stand out. Just like Coach said, hey, there's a guy he's going to follow up with. Just seeing some energy. So I know we've
Yeah.
got some questions popping in the chat box, guys. I'm going to get to some of those here. Make sure you fire away in there. One good question came in, Coach. It's kind of on our topic here. What about like two-way guys? I know at the Division II level it gets even more competitive, and so that can be a challenge, right? Like guys probably have to be really good both ways. But do you look at some two-way guys? Like how strong does a guy have to be to go both ways? Like what are kind of your guys' thoughts in looking at that?
I absolutely love two ways.
Mm-hmm.
So going into Seton Hill, I was a two-way. I was recruited as a two-way. Um, I went 1 for 13 in the fall with a bunt base hit and struck out about 9 times, and Coach Maz retired my bat. Um, but I think it's great. I think again it promotes that athleticism. I don't want to take a knock on any travel coaches or high school coaches, but I think sometimes student athletes are being pushed to that pitcher only a little too early. I remember so many memories in high school and playing back home in summer leagues, and I remember outings on the mound, but I also remember plays I made at shortstop or at bats and things like that. And there may be a time where you come into the office and we have to sit down and make that decision. But I think be a two-way as long as you can. What I tell guys that ask about a two-way opportunity is I always give them an opportunity in the fall. And then I sit down and I talk to them and I say, hey, it's working out. We're great. Let's keep rocking with it. Or we kind of sit down, we give them our evaluation of what we think is their stronger suit. We kind of get into a conversation of, hey, you could be good at both, or you could be a great pitcher, give up hitting, or vice versa. And again, that's not a conversation that needs to happen when you're 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
I think it's a conversation that happens when you get to your school. But yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it promotes athleticism. I think, again, if a guy can prepare to be a two-way, if at some point, the time's up and you have to pick one or another, and now you can double down on the preparation for one or the other. I think there's a lot of benefits that go into being a two-way player. In our incoming class, we have 6 incoming two-ways, and they're all legitimate. We're not sure which way they'll go.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was gonna be a question of mine. So, obviously the roster makeup changes from year to year. Things can be different. But like this past spring, how many guys like got both position time and some innings on the mound? Like a handful of them. What would you say?
Yeah, about 3 or 4. Our
Nice.
closer was one of our infielders.
Okay.
We had an outfielder that threw some innings for us. The tricky one is there's a few catcher pitchers out there.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one. But we actually have an incoming freshman that does both. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, hang on to it as long as you can.
For sure. Let the coaches tell you when it's time to hang up one or the other, right?
Yeah.
Good stuff. So as you guys are getting into, again, kind of the summer and kind of looking at your class and putting some things together here, what do you find are like certain positions that, you really are looking like kind of go after specifically, like at maybe just that philosophically as a program, or what are some of the more challenging positions to kind of fill? That was another question that kind of popped in the chat box here. Obviously there's good players everywhere and at all positions, but specifically, like what have you guys found that are some of the more challenging positions to maybe fill, to find those guys that you're really kind of looking for?
Yeah. So I mean, traditionally we're always going to bring in a certain number of pitchers depending on how many we're losing, how many we feel we need. Typically that number is going to be somewhere between 6 and 8. I'm a firm believer in bringing a catcher in every class. At least one. We have a decent amount of freshmen coming in, so this would be the year, we possibly pass on one. And then what we're looking for is we're looking for athletes. So typically, watching just a typical game, I'm recruiting, middle infielders, center fielders. I'm watching everyone, but those positions typically have the better athletes. And we actually saw this year, we had 3 or 4 shortstops come in and they ended up dispersing and playing all over the field. Again, you get on a strong travel program and you have guys at every position. That's great. I would say the challenging position we're running into right now is third base.
Okay.
We're converting shortstops to third baseman, which is great defensively, but sometimes you take a little dip offensively. So that's kind of the tricky position for us right now. We do have a strong senior that can really glove it right now, but as far as recruiting, looking towards the future, that's kind of a tricky position for us right now is third base.
Great stuff. Yeah, great insight there. I think it's important for you guys just be the best player you can be and
Yep.
kind of let things play out there. Now, another question came in. I want to ask you real quick before we get into some more about the recruiting stuff. How about like summer camps? Do you guys run some camps? Is that something that is a way for you to identify or evaluate recruits? How do you guys sort of handle camps within the recruiting process?
Yeah, so we run a prospect camp at the end of the summer,
Hmm.
and then we run one in the fall.
Cool.
And we do those strategically. So the end of the summer, we try to identify guys throughout the summer,
Hmm.
and it's kind of a second chance, or maybe a guy's interested and we just didn't get an opportunity to see him.
Hmm.
And then we run another one in the fall, which is a little more personalized. It's
Hmm.
still open to anyone to come, but it's more the guys who, we've actively been recruiting now for 2 or 3 months.
Hmm.
We also parlay both of those with, a campus visit, a Q&A with our guys, Q&A with the coaching staff.
Hmm.
We're a little unique. We even have a Q&A with the parents and the coaching staff just to talk through, financial aid, any questions that they have. But yeah, I think prospect camps are amazing.
Hmm.
And I think that because if a high school student athlete, guys on this call, if you guys are truly doing your research, that's kind of the one way to guarantee, Holy Family is going to see me
Hmm.
or St. Joe's is going to see me. Um, where if you go to a big event, yes, we're going to be there, but there's other kids in the shuffle, there's other things going on. Where if you go to a prospect camp, not only do you have my eyes on you, but you have Coach Davis, our head coach, you have our associate head coach, you have all eyes on you.
Hmm.
So I think it's a really cool opportunity. Um, but again, I think you need to do your due diligence and make sure, that school's a fit for you. Um, don't just go to a prospect camp to go to a prospect camp. Go to a prospect camp if you have genuine interest in that school.
Cool. And someone just threw in here. I think maybe they're doing some searching while we're chatting here. Do you guys have prospect camp info on your website, or where can the guys
It
here? Is it
it
posted
should
yet?
it should be up by next week. So
Cool.
we
So probably
actually
still
we
waiting. Yep.
play yeah, we play our home games at FDR
Cool.
Park,
Mm-hmm.
which is a satellite field for the Phillies.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually reworking the contract
Mm-hmm.
so we can get a few more dates a little earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have that info up.
Cool.
It'll be on our social media, it'll be on our athletic website, all that.
Awesome. Awesome. Great stuff. Now, what
Yep.
are some other challenges that you guys kind of run up against just as a program at Holy Family specifically? Again, a newer program, so some things might
Sure.
pop up here as we get going. But now that you guys are in it a year and moving into year two, what are some of the things that you think are, potentially challenges that you're going to face in recruiting as far as like, just any challenges, things that, for you guys, we're going to kind of be up against this or, we'll potentially have to work against this as far as, getting the guys that we're looking for.
Sure. I think, as you hit on earlier, Pennsylvania Division II
Mm-hmm.
baseball,
Mm-hmm.
it's the real deal.
Yeah.
So not only are we recruiting against teams in our conference that are also from New Jersey, Connecticut, and
Mm-hmm.
Delaware, but we're also recruiting against PSAC schools now who, for being transparent, their track record is a lot better than ours, a lot longer than ours.
Mm-hmm.
You have teams like Millersville and Westchester, 30 minutes away from us who, play in a super regional every year. So definitely a challenge. At the end of the day, kids want to go where they're wanted, but they also want an opportunity to win. And having a great season definitely benefits us. But at the end of the day, we had one strong season, for a first year program in terms. So I think that'll be our biggest challenge moving forward is we're still going to be the new kids on the block. I think, the Philadelphia area is awesome because it's so densely populated,
Mm-hmm.
but we're also, recruiting against a lot of Philadelphia
Yeah.
schools.
Yep.
LaSalle's bringing baseball back, a Division I school who, kind of like us is starting back up, and we're going to be competing against, another Division I school in our area. So I think that'll be our biggest challenge ahead for sure. And then the other thing I think is just we're getting such an influx with social media, with the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
I think the travel to go out and see kids in person will be a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I was talking to a junior college pitcher from Detroit, and looks great on video, but we'd love to get out to see you. I can't exactly hop on a flight out to Detroit, to see you throw tomorrow. So it's challenging. Social media is so great. It's such a great introduction, but unless he comes to our prospect camp or is in the Northeast or an event that we're going to be at, we're not going to have that opportunity to see him in
Yep.
person. So
Yep.
that's kind of the pro and con, of we get to recruit nationally, but we also, have to make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's and are able to see people in person.
Definitely. I think that does for the guys in the room here also while you might be pursuing schools further away from home, get the interest locally as well, because
Yeah.
it's probably going to be easier for you to get to them, easier for the coaches to see you. So, kind of find that balance as well. How about the admissions process? How does that kind of play into it for you guys? Is it like, man, not big deal? We find guys we like, not much trouble, pretty selective academically. How does that kind of play into the recruitment for you guys?
I'd say we're pretty middle of the pack. We package really well, but we kind of have a unique process of how we do it as a coaching staff. So Division II, we do have athletic scholarship, and we're a fully funded program for Division II, which is a blessing for sure, especially as that new program. But we kind of handle it a little different. So typically, at some universities, when they have you apply, you're also going to know your athletic scholarship. And I think it's a little tricky because if I tell you, hey Andy, we're going to give you $5,000 of baseball scholarship, you don't really know what that $5,000 means until you go through the application, see what you get from FAFSA, see what you get academically, things like that. So we're okay taking our time. We have student athletes apply, get back their merit scholarship in FAFSA, which is essentially the ticket price that they're going to pay. From there, that's when we kind of sit down, have the big boy conversation of, what number do you and your family comfortably need to be at, and how can we supplement athletic scholarship?
Yep.
So it's a little different than you'll see at some universities, but it just kind of works for us. So that's kind of the route we've been taking.
That makes sense. I mean, you're kind of playing the stock market in a way, right? Like
Right.
if a guy gets a lot of money because he's just a really good student, maybe you don't have to throw as much his way. Not necessarily an indication of your interest, right? It's just about making sure you're stretching your dollars as far as you can.
Right, 100%.
Cool.
And
Cool.
we also differentiate on those guys. So, we have a handful of kids that applied. We talk to them through the process, but we might not have been actively recruiting them. And what we do is we give them a tryout opportunity. So they're able to come in the fall. You get to try out for, about 2 weeks. We try to give a fair shake. And then there's guys vice versa that I was a 4.0. I get great academic money, I don't really need athletic money. But hey, you're guaranteed a roster spot. You're guaranteed this 1 year with us. And there's a difference there. So, high school guys, as you go through the process, and I've coached at the Division III level where there's no athletic money. Just make sure, you clarify and have that differentiation between, hey, I'm guaranteed a roster spot or I'm trying out, because it does get a little, gray at some different areas.
Absolutely. What are the kind of phrases that they can listen for to sort of so that they're not guessing? Like, or what kind of questions can they ask to clarify if on their side it's maybe not as clear?
So yeah, I mean, I think asking a coach like, hey, do I have a guaranteed roster spot? And then also, what does that roster spot entail? So at my previous university, we offered roster spots. We were a Division III program, but that roster spot was for 1 year. And we did that kind of to motivate guys to continue to, just grind, continue to get better. So for example, we had the Division III player of the year, and if he came back 40 pounds out of shape and forgot how to hit home runs, we don't have to guarantee him a roster spot. Luckily that didn't happen, but we did that as a 1 year roster spot to continue to motivate guys, continue to push them. And they were an at-will employee, just like myself. Every year we have to re-up and earn your spot. Now, other schools will give you a guaranteed for 4 years. Hey, we're recruiting you, we're investing in you. You have all 4 years with us. So yeah, I would just ask those questions. College coaches are great. We're straight shooters. We'll tell you how it is. We're not, we're here for you guys to go to the best fit that you find. And a lot of us, we won't sugarcoat it. We'll tell you, hey, you're wanted here, or hey, we think you have some tools we'd love for you to try out. And either are both, strong options.
And there's usually no mystery, right? Like you said, like if you aren't sure where you stand, maybe there's a good chance you're not as high on the list, because they probably would be letting you know pretty clearly if you were. So ask the questions if you aren't sure.
Yeah, for sure. Ask the questions.
Good question came in about the timeline for you guys. And I was going to get into that a little bit because we're a couple days away here from an important date for the Division II recruiting timeline, a little bit for the 26s, right? You guys can start to open up there with those guys. But where are you at in your timeline? Like, what classes are you focusing on? 24s, still anything there, or pretty much wrapped up? Fully on 25s, 26s? Are you going to call anybody in 3 days, or where are you guys at as far as your timeline?
Yeah, so what we do, we're pretty much wrapped up with the 24s. If you're a lefty throwing 95, I'll give you a ring. But pretty much wrapped up with our 24 class. really working on identifying 25, starting to get those guys to campus. And then 26, what we do is we call them a high follow. So essentially we'll put them on a group board, follow along. We'll start the communication here in a week. And what we'll do is we'll really promote those guys to come to our fall camp. So as far as the timeline, what we essentially do is June, July, and August is like our discovery period. We're discovering you. We're trying to start to build that relationship. And then the fall is when we kind of start to get serious. We make sure the application's in. We get you to campus, things like that. We do have 25s visit throughout the summer. I'm kind of against it because I think it's important for you to visit when the guys are on campus.
Yeah. Yep.
We're lucky that we have a few guys doing summer internships and they're around to, talk to guys, but we want you to experience a practice. We want you to go to the dining hall with the guys and really, feel like what it's going to be like if you decide to come to Holy Family. So that's kind of our timeline, 3 months in the summer. August, we start to flip it and get you guys on campus. And then normally around like Halloween, Thanksgiving time is when we start to sit down, have those conversations of, hey, where are you at with things? Or, hey, we're recruiting one more pitcher. The next guy that calls us, we're going to call everybody and say, hey, we got our guys. We're good. 26s, I think it's a good time to start making that initial contact, start inquiring about prospect camps, and, start to get on some big boards. But yeah, hopefully that answers your guys' questions. If you have, more details that you'd like to know, shoot them over for sure.
Yeah, great insight there. Now, as far as like the 26s go, you guys probably aren't like throwing out offers to like early juniors, right? Necessarily. Like when does maybe like an offer potentially discussion kind of start to happen?
Yeah, so if we talk to a 26, this physical year at any time, meaning, maybe you reach out, we start to have some, light communication in the summer. We get to see you play, although you're probably not our big focus because we're still in the 25s. Maybe even come to camp, things like that. I would say it would start to get serious maybe like December once we wrap up that 25 class because we flip it pretty quick. So as soon as we get that last 25 commit, we need 12 players. Once the 12th guy calls, we call our guys, say, hey, we got our guys. We wish you the best. And we flip it right to the 26s. So it sounds a little harsh, but as far as like an early commitment, it would be kind of like rolling into your senior year, or rolling into your senior.
Yeah, no, great insight. Now, question about like just kind of your admissions requirements there. How about like GPAs, and you guys look at ACTs and SATs there? Is that optional? Talk about that a little bit as far as like admissions.
Yeah, we're a test optional school. We'll also take the unweighted GPA, and essentially, like a lot of the schools nowadays, it's kind of like a chart across the top and across the bottom. So, a certain GPA unweighted, you get X amount of dollars. It's pretty cut and dry. It's on the website and actually displayed really well for guys to understand. So if you guys want to take a look at that. Graduates a little more selective. We're still doing really well. We haven't had anybody declined. Typically you don't really see graduate guys, guys pursuing an MBA be quote unquote low academic. So you don't typically run into issues there, but in turn, you're going to have to get your transcripts from your previous school, letters of recommendation, things like that. So my biggest piece of advice for guys going through the application process is just have everything ready. Have your guidance counselor get you your transcripts, know your GPA off the top of your head, and know all your other personal information that we teach you to learn from middle school. And then I would say the FAFSA is really important as well. Families that use the FAFSA, is really easy to add schools. Even if that school just is a mild interest, just throw them on the FAFSA. Everything is just a click away. It's a free click. So definitely, utilize that tool.
Awesome. Good stuff. Coach, I know I've thrown a lot of questions out. Anything that you were coming into the session here, the call here tonight, just kind of like hoping to convey, or any tips or advice for these guys? What are some the thoughts you might like to leave these guys with tonight, whether it's Holy Family, just recruiting in general, words of encouragement, anything that we've kind of left out that you're hoping to throw at these guys today?
Yeah, sure. I have two things that I kind of have canned up and tell every recruit and every student athlete that I coach. First is find your why. I think you need to realize why you play baseball. A lot of people say they want to play college baseball, or they like the thought of it. But once you get to, a university and you're playing college baseball, things kind of shift in your life. You might be in a relationship, you all of a sudden have a college course load. Like there's a lot going on in your life, and I think it's important to have that why you do it. When I was going through it, although I was only 3.5 hours away from home, I was a little homesick, and that was a really important tool that Coach Maz at Seton Hill, introduced us to. And I found it really quick. My grandfather passed away when I was in school. He was my number one fan. My high school catcher passed away, and I had another family friend who was just a number one baseball fan in the world. And I lost all of them, while I was in school. So not only am I doing it for myself, I'm doing it for my teammates, but I'm doing it for, small Palmyra, Pennsylvania. I'm doing it, for those people that don't get to watch me anymore. And being a special education teacher, there's a lot of kids that don't get the opportunity to play any sports, let alone play college baseball. So, not to get too sappy or anything, but, just put things in perspective. You get to go out and play baseball this weekend, and you get to do these things that so many people don't get the opportunity to do. And I think it's important, and it can really benefit, high school guys who are starting to really mature to kind of put things into perspective, and just understand, why do I do this? What's motivating me? What's helping me get up for that 7 a.m. lift, things like
Yep.
that.
Yep. Yep.
And then thing number two kind of goes along with the recruiting process. Enjoy it. I think so many people and families, student athletes, they get so consumed into the stress of it, that to remember to enjoy it. Again, I don't know if I said it with just you, Andy, or the whole crew, but I committed May of my senior year, which it's unheard of. That doesn't happen. If you were guys on this call committing in May, you'd be shaking in your boots, and it's understandable. That's the landscape of college baseball nowadays, but I took so long because I didn't know until I visited Seton Hill. I just didn't know. I visited 20, 30 schools from Division I all the way to Division III junior colleges. And I just didn't know, but I really enjoyed those visits. I remember going to Arcadia and walking through the castle. I remember, so many different visits that it was truly enjoyable, and I wouldn't have changed a thing at all. I always tell guys, you're Shohei Ohtani, you're in your free agent market, and go where you're wanted, go where you're going to have an opportunity, and enjoy every second of it. And then when you get to that place, enjoy every second of it as well. It's not, so many people call it a job. It's not a job. You're playing baseball. It's a great
Yep.
time. Enjoy the journey. Don't be too consumed with what's at the end of that tunnel. Just enjoy every second of it.
Awesome. Great stuff. Great advice. And hopefully some guys can take some of that to heart here tonight. All right. So real quick here, guys, fire away in the chat box if there's some questions. I'm sure Coach Tyler is happy to hang around and answer for you. But real quick, I want to just talk about a couple things here real quick, NCSA related, and then we're going to start to wrap some things up and get some questions. So just real quick, guys, just so you know, we're helping on our side. We're posting roster openings. We're talking to coaches. We're posting their needs. So check those out on your profile. Keep an eye on for your grad class, your position, who we're hearing from. If you want to get some matches updated, some evaluations updated, get us updated video numbers. We can take a look, reassess, go through an evaluation session with you for the MVPs and elites, and we'll do some promotion for you guys too, right? So for the MVPs and elites, we'll get you out to high match programs. We'll get you out to schools we're talking about with you. So we'll be doing some of that on our end. Coach Tyler's left you guys a lot of great advice about how to be connecting with him and what they're doing and what they're looking for. But we'll be doing some work on our side of things too. Got our contact info. Make sure you guys screenshot that. And then real quick in the chat box, don't anybody jump out. I got a survey link that's in the chat box. All right. So hopefully tonight's interview has been helpful. We'd love to hear that, of course, guys, but let us know how things are coming along. Fill out that survey link. But let's get to some questions here. I know some really good ones have come in. If you got some questions, the chat box is open. Fire away. If you're good, feel free to jump out of here. We'll send out the recording here in a little bit. But Coach Tyler, appreciate the time, of course. If there's anybody jumping out, just know that he's here and he's willing to chat with you, I'm sure, if you guys have any questions as well. So cool. All right. Got some questions coming in here, Coach. So when you're getting emails, what are some bad emails or sort of like, what are things that don't look good in email versus what's good? What are you looking for? What kind of information details are good? What are maybe things you probably don't need to talk about, or what makes an email not a good one versus a good one in your eyes?
Sure. I always say short and sweet. Subject line, include your name, class, maybe GPA. And then in your email, I need, 3 sentences. Hey, coach, this is my name. I go to this high school, play for this travel team. These are my grades. this is who I am as a player.
Mhm.
We used to get a lot of emails telling me, I'm also in the marching band and things like that, and that's great. Don't take that away from yourself. But it's tough because we get a lot. Today alone, I probably rolled through 20, 30 emails
Mhm.
just for guys for this coming weekend.
Mhm.
So, keep it short and sweet. Tell the coach exactly what you want to know, or you want them to know. And yeah, just nice and short, nice and short. And include your summer schedule. A
Mhm.
lot of times I'll get an email, hey coach, I see that Holy Family is going to be here, but it might not be me. So include that entire summer schedule in case, we miss it, something comes up and we need to follow up.
Do you guys do you have a preference yourself on whether it's an email just to you, to the entire coaching staff, everybody copied on it? Like, what's kind of your
Yeah.
feeling on sort of like how it's presented or sent out to you guys as a staff?
Yeah, I would say not that our other coaches ignore emails, but
Hmm.
being the recruiting coordinator, that's kind of my
Hmm.
task, is
Yes.
to reply to those emails. So I would definitely include me. If you want to include the entire staff, that improves your chances
Hmm.
essentially of
Yeah.
getting it. So I guess that would be my piece of advice, include all the coaching staff that have emails on the
Hmm.
site.
Yeah, it may just cover all the bases there. Do you get
Yep,
stuff forwarded to you, like from the head coach and stuff like I just like
all
a
the time.
straightforward? Yeah,
Yep,
I
all the
did as
time.
well. Good stuff. So yeah, just know guys, like I got a good chance. Again, just hit them all up there. So awesome. Well, any other questions? Any other questions that you guys have here? Well, we got Coach Tyler on. We'll give it a second here, see if any others come firing in here. So, so you mentioned, Coach, you're out on the road this weekend. What's kind of your schedule like this summer? Give the guys some insight into kind of what your summer is looking like here as far as your travels here.
Yeah, I'll be about 5 or 6 days a week this
Mm-hmm.
summer, which
Mm-hmm.
which is lax compared
Mm-hmm.
to previous years. I'm staying pretty regional.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also getting married next summer, so trying
Congrats.
to stay regional. We just got a new kitten that I hear scratching downstairs, so trying to stay, in the New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New
Mm-hmm.
York area for right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
luckily, Coach CJ, our associate head coach, he enjoys some of the national events,
Mm-hmm.
so he'll be our guy going to California, going to Florida, things like that.
Cool. Cool. Good stuff. Good stuff. But you guys are on the road. So
Oh
again,
yeah.
these guys have a lot of kids they're going to see. So for the guys that are still in here, just make sure, like Coach said, get them your schedule, keep them updated because they're going to rely on you guys keeping them updated on that stuff. They can't keep track of all of your schedules. They need you to keep them updated on that stuff for sure. So
Yep.
cool. Good stuff. Well, I don't see a whole lot of other questions popping in. I just put that survey link in there again, guys. Click on that real quick before we go. But if there's no other questions, we can wrap some things up. I know Coach Tyler's probably got some dinner going or ready to get to that. So, Coach, again, thank you so much for the time. We'll get you on here again sometime down the road for sure. But
For sure.
yeah, anything these guys need, from you, reach out to him. He can answer some questions for you as well. If you guys are interested in Holy Family camp stuff, said he's going to be getting it posted. So appreciate it. But let us know if there's anything you guys need. Have a great night. Sure, we'll be talking to y'all again soon.
Thanks, Andy.
Yep. Bye, Tyler. Good night.